as a motorcycle deputy when he was doing that traffic stop in Rubidoux when this all occurred. And so there you see the Sheriff's Department. I see that's a Riverside County Sheriff vehicles moving along as well. So again, this press conference, hoping to start soon after this procession and hoping to learn a little bit about what occurred earlier today. I'm going to toss it back to you in the studio.
Thank you for that, those updates. And again, the procession route, we understand, will first go through Martin Luther King Boulevard and then on to Box Springs and then moving to Eucalyptus, again in the city of Riverside, onto the coroner's office, as Letty mentioned, is in the city of Paris.
Yeah, and we have to also mention the fact that the family is there, and what a horrible afternoon for them to get this news and then automatically be placed in this situation where they're now in this procession following the hearse as it is being moved over to Paris. And along the way, you'll see fire trucks with a flag that is draped. There's a whole system that kind of kicks in, and we're being able to witness it right now, a community that knows what to do in these tragic moments. And that was an interesting shot that they showed at the Riverside Community Hospital, where even the personnel from within the hospital comes out to show their respects.
Absolutely, just a devastating and heartbreaking process for the family of this deputy and for all of his co-workers, his colleagues, and all other law enforcement in the area. As Letty mentioned, other agencies are present there to pay their respects as well, because they know how dangerous the job is, and they can, they feel the loss.
The bigger details of what happened this afternoon still are a mystery to us. We know that a press conference will be taking place in a little bit later on. That's where we'll probably get an identification of the deputy who was killed, as well as the suspect, and what transpired when we saw this traffic stop. I know from Air 7, I personally saw the shots overhead of the scene where you can see his motorbike just sitting there. You could see where they worked on him and then transported him to the hospital. And it looked like this nondescript neighborhood. Not sure why it occurred, if this was an ongoing investigation or this was just a random traffic stop, but we're going to get the answers to those. But there's an impressive sight that you see right there. That's a live picture from Letitia's camera, and you see the enormous amount of law enforcement personnel who've now immediately come in response to this tragedy.
It is a moving sight. Indeed, very emotional for everyone involved, even us. We don't know this deputy, but every time we see this, of course, it is. It's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
Menifee Police, Orange County Sheriff's Department, Palm Springs has shown up as well, and a host of other law enforcement personnel have made their way to Riverside Community Hospital and now are going to follow the casket to Paris in the coroner's office.
And again, we are waiting to hear from Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco. Letty mentioned that he was getting ready to speak and release more details. Hopefully, we can learn more about what led up to the shooting.
Right. So we have had reporters spread out throughout the Inland Empire trying to cover the details of what happened this afternoon, from reporters on the ground to Air 7 as well, and that will continue throughout the evening as we try to get some answers to what happened and as well as what happens now. And especially for folks on the 15 freeway, that is still shut down. That's going to be an ongoing investigation where the freeway is completely closed. People are being diverted off the freeway now, and I know a lot of folks need to use that major thoroughfare to get to where they're going, but right now they can't.
Right, and now we have Chris Christie, we believe, in Air 7. Are you over the 15, Chris? What can you tell us about the procession?
Giovanna, David, we're getting our first glimpse as the lead units in that procession, including the hearse, it appears there, just crossed over the 91 freeway. You can see dozens and dozens of Riverside County Sheriff's deputies now emerging from Riverside Community Hospital. Again, in downtown Riverside, crossing over the 91, and it looks like they're heading out towards the 15 freeway, I believe. The plan, from what I've heard, is to actually make a stop by Martin Luther King Boulevard, then onto Box Springs, over to Eucalyptus in the city of Riverside, over to Paris, where the coroner's office is located. So an extensive procession. Obviously, they will have police escorts leading the procession all the way through, so they will not be in any kind of traffic. But there are dozens and dozens. I'm trying to get a full grasp on the numbers we're talking about here, but probably I would say at least 50 to 60 units in this procession. You're looking at the leading edge of the procession, and then you can see all of those deputies in trail there. So they are still coming out of the parking lot from the hospital, crossing over the 91. That is 14th Street, and it looks like they are heading out towards the 15th freeway here.
Right, and that is the vehicles, the motorbikes actually, I think, began the procession as well. That was impressive, but we have seen, Chris, Menifee Police, Palm Springs Police, OC Sheriffs, a whole host of law enforcement that is out there in support and to show the respects for the fallen deputy. This is always one of those moments where the whole community really knows what to do and becomes, there's the motorbikes as well, but they seem to have an idea of they all need to come together in these moments of sorrow. In a matter of minutes, they react.
Yeah, it rapidly becomes a community event, and you're so right about that. There are joining officers from a number of other jurisdictions, pretty much anybody who's available, even as far as San Bernardino and LA County. They will oftentimes send personnel as well if they have somebody available to join the procession. Unclear in this case who exactly is participating, but all of those municipalities that you mentioned are likely involved. And as you can see here, a lot of motor officers in the front of this procession. This was a motor officer, as you mentioned, that was killed in the line of duty. We flew over that really gory crime scene just a few minutes ago, and you could tell that something horrible had transpired earlier this afternoon. There wasn't much to it. The suspect's vehicle had obviously fled the scene in the wake of that shooting. The only thing left was that officer's motorbike and then the medical equipment that was used to treat him on the scene there. We don't have any information in terms of how this transpired, but it certainly appeared, just from our estimation, it appeared to be a traffic stop gone horribly, horribly wrong. Almost an ambush-style attack, but of course we will wait for official word from the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. A press conference now scheduled for 7:30 this evening, just under 2 hours away, and you can see them now on Martin Luther King Boulevard heading out towards the 215 freeway, where there is quite a bit of traffic. I'm curious if they're actually going to take the freeway, because there's really no way to clear the freeway, but I'm being told they aren't taking the freeway. They're going to turn off of Martin Luther King Boulevard here pretty shortly, and that'll probably be the quickest way to get further south towards Paris.
Well, it is incredible scene to see, and keep in mind there are two crime scenes, and Chris has seen them both. One where the initial shooting took place, and the other where they apprehended the suspect, and eventually he was killed in a confrontation with law enforcement. But this has the whole community reacting. You're stuck in this one way or another. You either feel the loss or you feel the pain of the traffic that's the result of the freeway being shut down. But the entire community out there is feeling something when it comes to this crime. And that, on the right-hand side, is that shot that I was talking about, where it's almost unprecedented. And at least in my experience, I've never seen a pursuit. That is the suspect's pickup truck in the very front. And look at all the law enforcement vehicles chasing him from behind. Eventually, it ended up on the freeway under an overpass. And Chris, you saw the scene.
David, I cannot remember another pursuit where there were that many officers involved. I mean, it almost reminded me of the signature shots of the OJ chase. There were so many police officers behind that pickup truck, and if you look at some of the video that we've brought in this afternoon, I mean, it almost looked like the whole state was behind that pickup truck. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. And then just before he actually came to a stop under that overpass, there was a spike strip attempt 2 of the tires flew off. That slowed him down a little bit. And then we understand that at one point, the SWAT team's Bearcat actually rammed him. Maybe it was a pit maneuver or something like a pit maneuver that eventually brought that suspect off of the freeway, pushed him up that embankment, and then in the wake of that crash, there were shots fired. We counted at least 2 bullet holes through the front windshield of that pickup truck, and we had visual confirmation that the suspect was indeed deceased on the scene down there. He had everybody after him, but we know that he was armed. Obviously, he had used a gun in the commission of that original murder of that Riverside County motor officer, and at some point posed a danger to those officers. At the termination of that pursuit, they were forced to use force, and of course, we will wait to hear from law enforcement this evening as to the details surrounding not only the murder, but also the end of that pursuit, because you can only imagine how dramatic that must have been. In any event, the entire community here gathering at a moment's notice to pay their final respects in the wake of this horrible tragedy through Riverside.
That's horrible.
Yeah, and as for what happened on that 15 freeway, once they were pursuing that suspect, and you saw the shot of all the law enforcement vehicles chasing from behind, from what we understand, it ended under the 5th Street Bridge in Norco. And that's where, and I've never seen this before either, and you saw the shot, Chris, a Bearcat actually pitted the vehicle and pushed it up against an embankment, and that's where the suspect was basically stuck. Eventually, he succumbed. How, we don't know. We don't know if it was the shooting and you saw the bullet holes, or if it was perhaps part of the accident. We're not sure, and we'll perhaps get some of those details. But nevertheless, it ended there on the 15 freeway. And now you can see this procession, Chris. They are going on to an empty freeway in one spot, but this is all part of the investigation as well.
Right, so they're actually getting onto the 215 freeway. I stand corrected. Okay. They're getting onto the 215 freeway, which does have quite a bit of traffic. I think they're creating some room ahead. I'm really not exactly clear on how they're going to do this. Right now, the portion that they've entered the freeway on is relatively empty. They have blocked the entrance ramps from letting further traffic on, but about 3 miles up ahead on the southbound side, you see all that northbound traffic on the left side. On the southbound side up ahead, there is a whole lot of brake lights. So they're going to have to clear that, and I imagine they'll be able to do that with their traffic techniques, as you're well aware of. And now it looks like they've got this portion of the freeway to themselves. You have to remember also, there was a major manhunt in the wake of that original shooting as well. This entire community was on edge for at least an hour by my estimation, maybe an hour and a half before we caught wind of that pursuit that was taking place. This was an all hands on deck situation. In fact, if you notice at the termination of the pursuit, the SWAT team was already there. A lot of times it requires a lot of time to get the SWAT team out to respond to a situation like this. There were actually 2 Bearcats at the end of that pursuit, not to mention all of the other agencies and personnel, and 3 additional helicopters just to be on the safe side there. So everybody was involved in that pursuit. And now, unfortunately, just a couple of hours later, probably many of those same officers now involved in this procession. It's actually not too far. It's probably, let me see, roughly about maybe 8 to 10 miles. It's mostly clear. Once they pass this initial little traffic jam, if they do face that traffic jam, but the problem is, or not a problem, but the information we're getting is that they're making a couple of stops along the way. So I'm not sure they're taking a direct shot straight to Paris, or if they're going to get off the freeway and make some landmark stops. That's what we had heard. I know Letty had mentioned something to that effect, but you can see right now they are on the freeway. Under normal circumstances would take about 15-20 minutes without traffic, perhaps a little bit faster, but if they get off the freeway and make some stops, that might add a little bit of time here. I'm not exactly clear, but as I mentioned, the information we had is that they were going to head towards Box Springs and then on to Eucalyptus towards the city of Paris. You can see some of the overpasses here with fire department personnel with their, saluting the hearse as it goes underneath that overpass. That's actually the Escondido Freeway just above the 215. Yeah, you're exactly right, and you can see another somber scene here. Something we have almost become accustomed to. It, just this year alone in 2022, I'm instantly reminded of the not one but two separate incidents over in El Monte that we covered, and at least a couple more earlier on in the year. They just start to stack up and blend together after a while. After you cover so many of these, and each one of them is just so tragic because these officers are giving up their lives to protect us, and you have a brethren who, this is a family. This is a family 100 strong who gather every time this happens, and it is just a somber and emotional experience every time we fly over it. It's really something to see. It's quite a display, but it's also just heartbreaking. Copy. No, this is one of the biggest we've seen in a long time, and it does look like they're taking a straight shot down the 215 straight to Paris. By my estimation, they have passed under a number of freeways, just past Alessandro, now approaching Cactus Avenue. But as our photographer Rob Gluckman widens out, I want to help you get the scope of this procession. We're talking about already a 4 to 5 mile long procession. I think some of those rear units in the procession are still leaving the hospital. So this goes from Cactus Avenue, where the body is now being taken under that overpass. Again, each of these overpasses lined with firefighters and their flags draped over the overpasses, and the procession going back about 5, maybe even 6 miles back with motor officers, sheriff's deputies, Riverside City, a number of San Bernardino sheriff's deputies, and all of the surrounding communities sending representation to pay their respects to this officer who was shot and killed in the line of duty this afternoon. And again, after a major manhunt, a dramatic police pursuit ending in dramatic fashion over on the 215 freeway, where just a few miles from here, that investigation is still unfolding, where that suspect was apparently shot and killed on the spot in Norco. Again, you're looking at the southbound side of the 215 freeway. We're right next to March Air Force Base, Air Reserve Base, I should say, and that procession moving at a pretty good clip now, with a little bit of traffic up ahead here, but the traffic is moving. I don't think it's going to be a factor, and it does appear they are making the straight shot down the 215 directly to Paris, where the Riverside County coroner's office is indeed located, and obviously we can expect more ceremony in the coming days. Guys? The very beginning, yep. As far as the eye can see, yeah. Right. So it's going back as far back as Eucalyptus. We started near the front. We're over the Hearst right now at March Air Reserve Base. So essentially, from March Air Reserve Base all the way back to past Eucalyptus is about the length of this this procession. And I think I saw traffic beginning to move behind it. So that would be the entire procession. As we look back on it with better perspective now, as I look out the window from Air 7 HD, I think I originally said about 50 or 60 units. This is much closer to 100 units, at least 100 units in this procession, if you include all of those motor officers and then all of the black and whites behind them, some special units involved, as well as some fire department personnel in the procession, and also lining these various overpasses, basically from downtown Riverside all the way to Paris. Each and every one of these overpasses has fire department personnel saluting the hearse as he passes underneath them, and a final salute to a fallen hero here in Riverside County. ICOM. That's right. It's been just a dramatic afternoon here in Riverside, a traumatic afternoon for not only the entire community, but especially those officers who belong to these departments, both the Riverside City Department, the Riverside City Police Department, the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, and all of the neighboring municipalities who participated in the response to that initial shooting and the manhunt that took place later in the afternoon, and as you mentioned, ultimately culminating in a wild police pursuit down the 15 freeway. Wasn't sure how that one was going to end. Eventually, they were able to spike the vehicle with, no less than 2 or 3 dozen units in pursuit, eventually slowing the vehicle down, and a SWAT team Bearcat eventually ramming the pickup truck off the road, a shooting taking place at the end of that pursuit, and then we learned that that suspect was indeed killed. And as we then flew back over to the original murder where that motor officer was shot by that suspect, you just had this pit. At least I did, as we got our first glimpse of that crime scene, this pit in my stomach, as you just try and only imagine what took place there. As I mentioned, there really wasn't much left except for the motorbike where the officer left it. That pickup truck had fled the scene, and it's a little bit different. Something hits a little bit different than officer when he knows he's going into an active crime scene, into an active shooter situation or something like that. But it's just a reminder that something as simple as a traffic stop can turn so deadly, so dangerous, so quickly. And each and every one of these officers know that they are in a profession that when they leave the door, when they leave home in the morning and walk out that front door, it's just you're reminded that you just don't know 100% of the time whether you're going to make it home in the evening. And that is what is going through each and every one of these officers' mind. Not only the officers in this procession, but their families as well. It is something that touches every single person in this community. What's the name? What sign is that? Yeah, that's right, David. Just past Nuevo Road and the procession extending just underneath Placentia. Each of these overpasses with fire department personnel saluting the procession as they pass by, and they are now closing in on the town of Paris, which is just one or two exits ahead of them. So I'm not sure exactly what street the coroner's office is, to be honest, but they should be getting off of the freeway here in the next couple of minutes. Again, you are looking at the leading edge of a 4 to 5 mile long procession made up of officers and deputies from a number of various jurisdictions, law enforcement agencies from across Riverside County and beyond, taking part in this somber tradition, a procession to accompany their fallen brother this evening to the coroner's office in Paris, departing the Riverside Community Hospital just a few minutes ago. They have now made their way down to Paris, just about 10 miles south of the hospital, where the hearse will be unloaded. The officer's body will once again be ceremonially removed, and then this will come to an end. We saw that as they loaded him in from the hospital into the hearse just about a half hour ago, and now they have made their way all the way down to Riverside. No less than 100 officers involved in this somber procession. David? They're still on the 215, and they're still on the 215, so at least another exit or two before they get off. Actually, I could see where there is another another gathering of law enforcement where they're eventually going to get off the freeway, so roughly another mile ahead of the edge of the pursuit. In fact, you'll be able to see it here in just a second. There is a large police presence waiting for them as they get off the freeway, and eventually, I think that says, what does that say there, Rob? Can you make that out? They're going to be getting off at that exit right there, and that'll take them directly to the coroner's office, just about a couple blocks off of the freeway. But you can see police escort waiting for them just off of the freeway there, and more officers at the coroner's office as well. Just so many people taking part in this event, guys. So that's going to be West 4th Street, getting off at 4th Street. Here's the exit, and they have one stoplight, and the coroner's office is literally 2 blocks off of the freeway. So we're about to see 100 officers flood the zone here. There's not even enough room in that parking lot for this many police officers, but nonetheless, they are all about to follow that hearse into the parking lot of the coroner's office. We are in the town of Paris as they now make the turn onto 4th Street. Officers saluting as they make that turn, and the procession starting to condense a little bit as they close the gap to allow traffic about 4 or 5 miles back to resume once again. You'll have to forgive these officers because there is got to be about, I mean, there are thousands and thousands of people who are stuck in the traffic behind them, just trying to get home, obviously. But a very important event here as they have been forced to shut down the freeway. It'll be reopened once again. You'll be relieved to know if you're waiting for somebody or trying to get home along the 215 this evening, the freeway will indeed reopen here in the next couple of minutes as these officers now get off of the freeway at 4th Street. There's the hearse right there, now approaching the coroner's office here in Paris. Yeah, they sure are. You can see lots of California Highway Patrol here as well. They were involved in that pursuit as it came to an end. And here they are, those leading motor officers, followed by the hearse, turning into the coroner's office to a hero's salute underneath the American flag right there in the driveway of the coroner's office. And they will be delivering the body, the remains of that officer here very, very shortly. In a methodical fashion. You can see them lining both sides of the driveway here. Officers from various jurisdictions. There's the hearse now arriving at the Riverside County Coroner's Office here in Paris. I have never seen it done here in Riverside at this coroner's office, but you can tell that those motor officers have already wrapped around the entire perimeter of the building. It certainly appears as they are going to pack in here and allow every officer to participate in this in some fashion as they park their vehicles and salute this officer as he is removed from the hearse and taken into the coroner's office. You can see the firefighters moving from the American flag back over to the other side of the building, and they will be ready to take part in that removal process as well. But it's going to take a few minutes just to get everybody back here. You can see them rushing back to the rear side of the building. Again, we're just 2 blocks off of the 215 freeway, where most of the procession is still on the freeway. So that's 4th Street there that runs through the middle of the screen, and then you can see about another 100 vehicles packed onto the freeway, stretching as far back as about 2 or 3 miles back. So still a ways to go before everybody packs in here, assuming they wait for everybody to arrive here and then unload the body. We'll see how exactly this plays out, but it is very ceremonial, and they will do this in as a respectful fashion as they possibly can. But the procession now coming to an end here in Paris. Yeah, it looks like they're organizing. They're trying to get into place. There's about a dozen officers there, additional motor officers wrapping around the building. I mean, this entire parking lot is just about to be filled with blue and red flashing lights. As you can see, this is just the very, very beginning of the procession. Again, a bulk of it still on the freeway as they try and squeeze in here. I mean, just look at all of these officers who have come out this evening to take part in this. Again, we have to remind you, this is a display put on by not only the Sheriff's Department, but at least a dozen other agencies taking part in this farewell here in Riverside. Yeah, every inch of grass in front of the coroner's office is going to be utilized as a parking lot, a makeshift parking lot. Obviously, these officers, many of them direct traffic for a living, and this is what they do, and they're doing an excellent job here as they bring this to an orderly end and try and allow everybody in here, allow everybody to kind of squeeze in, park their vehicles, and at some point, a bulk of them will gather around the hearse before it is eventually emptied and the body is removed from the hearse and placed into the coroner's office. But again, they are still coming off of the freeway. You're looking at the 4th Street exit where officers are still spilling onto the surface streets here towards the coroner's office. So a few more minutes perhaps, maybe a little bit more before the freeway is emptied of law enforcement, and we'll take a peek back over to the other side of the building, and I presume we'll see them continuing to organize and prepare for the unloading of that officer. Yep, you're right. And again, bulk of these are indeed motor officers who have now made their way to the entrance there, the rear entrance to the coroner's office. And they're starting to gather the hearse there in the shadows. Maybe a little bit difficult to see, as you mentioned. It is pretty dark on this side of the building. The sun has gone down. It is now, as we approach the bottom of the hour, I would venture to say within the next 10 minutes or so, they will have everybody parked and unloaded. And it looks like they're going to form a police line, as you mentioned, to allow everybody to gather around, line up, probably line both sides of that driveway, and salute that officer as he is removed from the hearse. So they're going to do their best to try and wait for everybody to get into position here. Still directing traffic through the parking lot there. Still upwards of 50 or so vehicles left on the freeway as they continue to pack in here, using every inch of real estate to park their vehicles. And it looks like they're going to exit their vehicles, walk over to the coroner's office building before the officer is removed. Still on the freeway. The last remaining ones should be off the freeway here in the next minute or so. And as I mentioned, that will be welcome news to the community behind them, because there are plenty of folks trying to get home. I want to go ahead and just pan over to the left up there, and you can get an idea of the traffic jam that has kind of formed here this evening along the 215 freeway. This traffic jam going all the way back to San Bernardino as far as the eye could see, all for a good cause, of course, but nonetheless a little bit of havoc here to the evening commute on this Thursday evening. Along the 215 freeway. Back over here in Paris, you can see officers continuing to pack the parking lot, exiting their vehicles, and now it does look like those final officers have now made way for the freeway to be reopened. You're looking at the exit ramp there near the top of your screen at 4th Street, and most of those officers have now made their way onto 4th Street, where traffic is being directed, all very methodically. And we will see that hearse emptied here in just a few more moments. That's exactly right. I do want to get an answer from our assignment desk, Jay, if you can hear me. I know we're getting an identity that has apparently been released of the officer. Jay, can you hear me by chance? Are we able to release that? I believe it's been officially released. I'll wait for further instruction there, but so, yeah. My understanding is that some other agency or agencies have paid respects to this male officer on social media, but the Riverside County Sheriff's Department has not officially released that name. But of course, as soon as they do, we will be able to report that. I'm getting my first picture of him, just a kind officer who we've lost. Yes. Go with it. Okay, I'm being told that we can now report that Officer Isaiah, or Deputy Isaiah Cordero, is the officer who lost his life this evening. He is in that hearse. His remains about to be removed here at the Riverside County Coroner's Office here in Paris. Deputy Cordero, an individual who we will be learning a lot about in the coming minutes and hours, about to be delivered here, and no less than 100 or more officers ready to pay their respects. That's right. We're learning that this deputy graduated motor officer training just a couple of months ago in September, according to the department's Facebook page, and he will be laid to rest here in the coming days. David? Once again, as you join us live on ABC7 and our ABC7 streaming apps, Chris Christie up in Air 7 HD, as we continue to follow this procession that has come to an end here in Riverside County, the remains of Deputy Isaiah Cordero, a fallen officer who was killed in the line of duty earlier this afternoon, being transported to Riverside Community Hospital and now transferred here to the coroner's office as officers ceremoniously unload his body from the hearse there and prepare to bring him inside the building. There are dozens and dozens, more than 100 officers who have gathered here this evening after a lengthy procession down the 215 freeway, which has now come to an end. The freeway now reopening to traffic, and again, more than 100 officers from various agencies saluting Deputy Isaiah Cordero as he makes his final stop here at the Riverside County Coroner's Office.